All right, folks, what is going on? This is episode 672 of the First and Frame Rate Show. I am VF Baller. Over here, we talk about Georgia Southern and Atlanta Falcons football. And today we're going to talk some Georgia Southern. And I think these guys are, I'm going to be a little biased. I think they're the favorite to win the East. But to be honest, they're probably the favorite underdog because a lot of people don't look at this team as a favorite in the Sunbelt. You got James Madison. You got Georgia State actually looking better than expected. And then you also have Marshall and Appalachian State. You can never count those guys out. And then you got Coastal. I mean, you got a lot of teams here that's just gonna be fighting for they're just gonna be fighting throughout this entire this division. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how this plays out. But I think Georgia Southern, to be honest, I think they got the most firepower. I think they have probably the most complete team that nobody really talks about. But we'll discuss that in a little bit more. But first, before I get in there, I want to talk a little bit of Atlanta Falcons news. So if this is your first time here, welcome. I can be found on YouTube and Rumble. I'm also on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. I just got word that Google Podcasts will be discontinuing in the coming months going into the new year of 2024. So I that's going to be really interesting. I think they're going to be moving it over to YouTube Music. So I guess it could be YouTube Music and Podcast. And so if you're listening over there on the Google side of things, if you have YouTube Music or if you don't, I highly recommend you get it. It's a very valuable source of music. And I don't want to go too far into this rabbit hole, but it is very intuitive. So even if you're over on the other podcast avenues, it won't hurt to have that. So I think I said enough about that. So I also can be found on YouTube I'll say YouTube and Rumble. I also can be found on X at VF Baller. And the website is firstandframerates.com. The Cash App, I know somebody wanted to know what the Cash App was. I know a few people was asking, is VF Baller 20, just like what my Twitter handle is, VF Baller 20. But I'll put all that up on the screen if you're listening on the YouTube or Rumble side at some point. But the link is down in the description if you want to donate and help support the show. All right, let's get into some Atlanta Falcons stuff first and foremost. Troy Anderson is on IR. I think he has a torn pec muscle. I think that's what it was. They said it was a shoulder, but he's on IR. And we didn't sign another linebacker. I don't think we need to. I think we got a lot of linebackers on the squad. Nate Landman will be stepping in his place. And so, to be honest, you're almost looking at a situation where that's not a downgrade at all. I think Nate Landman has done a phenomenal job. Let me get my drink out of the way. I think Nate Landman has done a phenomenal job at playing the position. I think he was one of the bright moments in the Detroit game, to be honest. So it would be interesting to see him take that role going forward. You got to remember, he was an undrafted free agent, and he's just been stepping up and playing pretty solid throughout the season so far. Also, we did sign Storm Norton, offensive tackle. I think he's like 6'7", 320 pounds. We signed him, and hopefully he can help with some pass blocking. At 6'7", he should be able to, because we can't pass block worth the what right now. And it's really sad because we have talented guys on the offensive line, but they're mostly run blocking guys, and you can see it. You can see it easily. So we'll see if he's going to get in there and get some reps or whatever. So, that's going to be really interesting. So outside of that, the Falcons look like it's business as usual. They're going to be traveling to London to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll see how that goes. Now, let's get into this Georgia Southern stuff. Favorite sleeper, I really believe that when you look at the impressive way that Georgia Southern has played, and I know people don't want to hear the impressive part because of what happened at Wisconsin, but outside of that, I mean, we basically, you can make a case that we basically pitched 2 shutouts, even though that Ball State did score 40-3, and then we ended up beating the Citadel, 34-0, and then even though that the UAB game was a 14-point win, that game really felt like it was probably like a 20-28 point win. It felt like we were in control of that game mostly from the get-go. I mean, the first play of the game, we get a turnover. But it just felt really good. And so with that being said, outside of the Wisconsin game, which we know what happened in that game, it wasn't necessarily the team collectively, fell back and laid down. Uh, this team looks really good. It's probably one of the best teams in the Sun Belt, let alone just the East. But we'll talk about that at another time. Right now, favorite underdog, absolutely. If you're a betting person, and I mean I'm not necessarily a betting person, it wouldn't hurt to put some money on Georgia Southern to win the East. I would not go against that. You look at Georgia State, which is fairly impressive because I didn't think they'll go 4-0 so far. I mean, the team was so bad last year, and for those guys to come back and win a few games, the most impressive one when they beat Coastal. I didn't think they were going to beat Coastal, but they did. And like I said, it was quite impressive. But the other games, I can see them going either way. But Georgia State is 4-0. So with them, James Madison is also 4-0, which is probably like the favorite to win the East based on last year. And then you look at Marshall, which is right now 3-0. I mean, you're looking at some teams that are really, some big dogs right now in the East. Now, I don't want to rule out Coastal Appalachian State yet because Coastal can go on a run. Appalachian State definitely could go on a run. I mean, they're undefeated at home, so you know how that goes. It's so easy for those guys to get back in the race. All I got to do is see one or two teams just stumble, and they're right back into it. Now, Old Dominion, I don't know too much about Old Dominion. I mean, I'm not really familiar with the team this year, but you just never know. So I'm just looking at everybody outside of Old Dominion just gonna be fighting, and but Old Dominion can sneak up on some people. I mean, I think we got to go there. I think they come to us, and we play them at the later part of the season. But we have to go to James Madison, and we have to go to Marshall. So those two games I'm really worried about. The Appalachian State game, not so much, even though they always play each other tough. I'm just not. I respect App State, but I don't see them that's the team to beat. Georgia State, we got an upper hand on them this year. I think we have a more talented team, and we play at home. So I can see us this year actually beating them, even though they've had our number for the past 2, 3, 4 years. And some of those games, to be honest, I think some Georgia State fans could really say this. They had no business beating, especially last year. I mean, they beat us by 8, but we turned the ball over 5 times. So I mean, we don't turn the ball over, we win that game. We gave them too many opportunities, but they won. They're well deserved, and I don't think that's going to happen this year. So I think we have the upper hand on that game. Coastal, we play Coastal this year at Paulson, and I'm not sure Coastal has a team to run with Georgia Southern. Matter of fact, I'm looking at all of these teams, even with James Madison. I don't think none of these teams really have the firepower to go up against Georgia Southern. I mean, Georgia Southern, I know it's all coulda, shoulda, wouldas, but Davis Brin, if he doesn't throw those interceptions, I mean, that's a totally different game in Wisconsin. I mean, we had the lead, and we had the game pretty much in hand, and they couldn't do nothing with us. You don't make those mistakes. That could have been Nebraska all over again. And I think a lot of people kind of know that, but whatever. It's over with. Coulda, woulda, shouldas don't do anything for anybody. But I'm not looking too much into the West. I'm going to look at the West at another time. But when you look at the East, it's going to be a dogfight. But when you look at these teams up and down, I respect what James Madison, Georgia State, and Marshall has. Don't get me wrong. I think they're very talented teams. But when you really look at what Georgia Southern has, the quarterback play, you have the running backs, you can put Jalen White in there. You got 3 running backs that can really, really hurt. That can really hurt a defense. The passing game is extremely efficient. I mean, the receivers are all over the place. You got Caleb, you got Derwin, you got Anthony Queeley. I mean, who else? I mean, you got Dalen Cobb, you got Jet Thompson. You got like 5 or 6 receivers and about 3 tight ends. It's very hard to cover all of those guys. I mean, it's just going to be a nightmare for some teams to do so. So with the firepower of the air raid offense that we run, and then you turn around and you look at this defense that's actually playing pretty good, I mean, you got to think about it. They actually played good against Wisconsin, but once again, you turn the ball over 5 times. your defense is going to get tired at some point. I mean, you can't just keep throwing them out there on the field, 3 and outs, even when a turnover where there's not even 3 plays in your back out there. You just can't do that. But when they have time to rest and go back out there and play their game, you get games like the Citadel. You get games like Ball State. And like I said, I'm not saying that none of these other teams can't hang with us. I think they can, but I think we just got a little bit more. And I think with what Georgia State has done is really good. I think they're pretty much their signature win so far was against Coastal. You look at James Madison. James Madison so far, they've played Bucknell, they played Virginia, won that by 1 point. They beat Utah State and they beat Troy. And I'm looking at these games like, okay, I like the Utah State win. That is, and the Virginia win, but I mean, what is the Virginia win? I mean, you looking at like a team like Virginia and Virginia Tech. I don't even think they're the better teams in their state. I mean, you looking at James Madison. I mean, they look like they're the better team. You know what I'm saying? I think they're the better team. So that's not necessarily a super dub or something to hang your hat on, because I just don't think that I don't think Virginia or Tech are like actually. I don't think they're really good teams right now. But kudos to James Madison to go in there and Virginia win. I'm not downplaying the win, but I don't think it's like that big of a Power 5 win in my opinion. I mean, Virginia football. I mean, right? You see what I'm saying? So when you play Utah State, they go out to Utah State and they win that game. I'm gonna have to look into that game a little bit more to see what happened there, because James Madison go out there and win that game. That is extremely impressive. I don't know how big of a caliber that Utah State is, but I do like that win. So I'm looking at those and it's like, okay, what's that? You know what I mean? It is what it is. And then, like I said, Marshall beat Virginia Tech, but like I said, I mean, shout out to Derek Canteen, but Virginia Tech's been on the decline for a while now. I just don't, I don't see it, and I think honestly, I think the East Carolina game is actually a little bit more impressive than the Virginia Tech win that Marshall obtained. So that's just me. So when I look at these teams, I'm not taking nothing away from them. I get what they've done, but I think for us, Georgia Southern, we played the toughest Power 5 opponent outside of probably App State playing UNC, and you see what happened. It was a game that it was a lot of self-inflicted wounds. But when we're starting to play against each other, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to be like, I think that we are like that underdog that really can make a difference, and we can wreak havoc in the East. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm a homer. You see, I got the shirt on and I got the hat on, but I really believe that. I mean, if there was a problem with the team, I'll definitely talk about it. I have no quarrels about talking about deficiencies, in the team, but this team is rocking and rolling right now. If they have that same type of intensity they had against Ball State for the rest of the Sun Belt, it's going to be a problem. I just don't see it. Maybe y'all know something I don't know. I mean, like I said, not to take away from what they're doing, but when you look at Georgia Southern, you see what they have, and you look at all the other teams. I just don't see. I don't see nothing that stands out more than Georgia Southern right now. I just don't. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys can let me know. Please let me know. I'm going to get up out of it because I don't want to go in circles talking about this, but GATA. If you like this commentary, hit the like button, share this podcast, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let me know what you guys think. I want to hear some guys out of the Sunbelt East. I mean, what you guys think? James Madison, chime in. Georgia State, chime in. Marshall, App State, Coastal, Old Dominion, all y'all chime in. Let me know. Am I talking crazy? I know y'all guys gonna probably think I'm talking crazy. Like, who's this guy? But I'm telling you, if you look at these rosters up and down, and I don't know everybody on the rosters of the other teams, but like I said, there's not many standouts. There's some solid teams, but I don't think there's a team with this much firepower where Georgia Southern just can put up like 40 points, put up 30 points. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I just don't see it. So, you guys, I can be found on YouTube. I can be found on Rumble. I am on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and I'm also on Twitter at VF Baller, and the Cash App is VF Baller 20. If you want to donate, I really appreciate it to help support the show. Also, the website is firstandframerates.com, firstandframerates.com. firstandframerates.com. All right, y'all, I'm going to get up out of here. Y'all take it easy. I will see you guys on the next one, and y'all be blessed. Peace.